Let's talk.
Giles Brown.
On my third guest on today, is Dr. Suki Finn. We're talking about what's in a donut hole. This isn't a cookery book. This is an explanation of philosophical puzzles and paradoxes. Good morning, Suki. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm a little bit busy, as you can probably tell, but, you know, it's better than a real job. If you are as much of a fan of pastries and coffee as I am, then this title speaks to me, Suki. So, first of all, explain why you're so eminently qualified. I mean, I see there's a doctor in the name there for a start. So, give me the Suki Finn 101, as it were.
Sure. I'm an expert in philosophy, specifically in applied metaphysics. So metaphysics is a part of philosophy that looks at reality in ways that go beyond what other disciplines might think about, hence the meta before the physics,
right.
Metaphysics. And so this book thinks about reality in these kind of more mysterious ways through the use of very commonplace examples like food. And so What's in a Donut Hole is the name of my forthcoming book. And it looks at things like absences, like the gaps in the middle of a donut hole, and other aspects of reality and how we're connected with it and how we experience it and sense it through food.
So if we're looking at, presumably, if we're looking at the hole in a donut, I can't believe I'm saying, if we're looking at the hole in a donut, then is that an absence of space, or is that something, or is it perhaps a different kind of space that we know it's there, but we can't quite quantify it?
See that you're already a philosopher, you're already doing it. All of those questions are spot on what we're thinking about in philosophical terms when we think about what happens when we take some material away. Do we create the absence of material, or are we creating a new sort of entity, like an immaterial entity, a space that has its own properties? So in that chapter, which is the very first chapter of the book, I ask questions like whether the whole exists as a thing in itself, or whether it's just a name for a space where there isn't actually anything there at all. And if it does exist, what sort of entity is it? Is it made out of material, or is it an immaterial entity?
But if nature upholds a vacuum, which is the one thing that I remember from physics, therefore there has to be something there. So if we're going to give it a title, it has to be maybe the anti-donut. So you have donut and anti-donut, for example.
Yeah, that is a great thing to refer to, is the vacuum, and whether, as you say, nature abhors the vacuum. And when we're thinking about the physics of reality, we can see that there really isn't anything that is so void of everything. Even the vacuum has something going on. There are some fields in the background there. There's some energy happening. And so nothing is ever truly empty. Nothing is ever truly void of any matter going on. And so the very idea that there are gaps in our universe, or even just gaps in between atoms, happens against the backdrop of some physical or quantum field.
And I suppose if you're looking at defining the universe through the medium of food, which is great, then, because one of the things that always blows my tiny mind, and trust me, at this point of the day, it really is tiny, but it is, because we're talking about gaps in the universe, but then you have to say, well, how big is the universe and where does it stop? And then if it's a box within a box, it keeps on infinite. Are we looking at the universe then as basically the ultimate all-day buffet, and that goes on, that stretches forever, and you can't get it, you can't finish it?
Well, that also is the topic of another one of the chapters in the book, when I look at infinity.
Yeah, okay.
And whether we can add on and on and on to this buffet of life, to infinity and beyond. And I'm specifically using the example of a pizza, and whether a pizza can infinitely grow, whether there's always space for one more slice that can serve one more person at the table, and how that differs from the size of infinity that you get when you try to break down your universe and you divide things up. So the the amount of numbers, the irrational numbers, say, between 0 and 1, within one slice of pizza, that is a greater size of infinity than the size of infinity that increases over the natural numbers, going from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and so on. And so I'm describing these different sizes of infinity via how we build up infinity through growing a pizza, and how we break down infinity through dividing it up, and whether that division can go on forever, especially when it comes to the irrational numbers.
But again, I suppose if you're talking about thin crust or thick crust, I mean, that defines how quick, how much you can slice down or indeed expand the aforementioned Italian delicacy. and does it involve pineapple is the burning question.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, what qualifies as a legitimate pizza topping is another very philosophical question.
Right, okay.
Because we set these boundaries around our concepts of what it takes to make something a certain type of food. And especially with like forms of cuisine that have some cultural heritage behind them that's made a food item what it is. So take, say, the spaghetti bolognese. Right. How much can you change that in terms of its ingredients before it stops becoming a bolognese and becomes a totally different type of entity? Once you've added your red chili beans and lots of other spices, has it become a chili con carne if you replace the pasta with rice, for example? So these questions about how much change can occur when we're adding, I suppose, non-traditional aspects to a food, like pineapple to a pizza, as you mentioned. How much change do we tolerate before we have to call it a different sort of entity?
But presumably we'd be looking then at base properties. So there are certain, stable building blocks, if you like, of the universe and also of your spaghetti bolognese. And then and then it starts to transmute into, depending on what you've got lurking at the back of the cupboard. And we've all got that anchovies thinking, well, I might as well put that in because it only went out of date 2 years ago. So I've got but it's in brine, so I should be okay. So therefore there has to be a tipping point in the order of things where what you identify as one thing with a certain set of property then transmorphs into another thing. And of course, over time, if you leave it too long, then organically your spaghetti bolognese, if you leave it in the harsh Andalusian sun, or like I did famously with Tupperware and tuna pasta, which I kept left under the front seat for 6 months and then forgot it was there and then opened it. Here's a hint. If you ever want to have a homegrown version of mace to spray at an attacker, tuna pasta in a Tupperware. I woke up lying on my back in the middle of Marbella High Street, retching uncontrollably. But that had changed.
Oh my gosh!
I know that had changed its properties though, from a tuna pasta to a weapon of mass destruction.
Exactly. And as you say, it seems like there's got to be some tipping point. And that tipping point really speaks to the vagueness of the universe, because where we try to draw that line doesn't seem to be a very hard, definitive boundary or border. So in another chapter of the book, I describe what is actually quite a common paradox that comes up in philosophy. It's known as the Sorites paradox. Right. Sorites is the Greek word for heap. And the paradox is how many grains of rice make a heap. And so imagine like the foods that I'm discussing in the book there is a biryani. And bit by bit, you take away 1 grain of rice from your biryani. At what point, after how many grains of rice, or how many grains of rice do you have left when you go over that tipping point into it no longer being a biryani, when it's actually just 1 grain of rice left, or in fact 0? There's definitely a time after that bit by bit process where your heap stops becoming a heap. But where that line is, how many grains of rice it takes to make a heap, is vague. And the philosophical issue is whether that vagueness is just a matter of us not knowing where it is, or whether there really is some blueprint of the world, some recipe book book of the world, which does give a definition for how many grains of rice make a heap.
But as we're looking at biryani here, surely you have to take into account on a purely philosophical basis cultural influences here. So what I might regard as a heap, being a white Western male from South India, might be considered as not a heap, but a plethora, for example, of rice.
Exactly. See, you've done this before. You've been thinking philosophically about food some time, I can tell. Cultural differences, of course, they come to bear so importantly on our concepts and on what makes a food item what it is. And so much of our food is imbued with these cultural aspects. And what we come to take as being delicious or not is also heavily culturally influenced. So I have another chapter in the book on this. Of course I do. Yeah. There are 18 chapters and each one goes through a different philosophical puzzle on the nature of taste and how sensitive that is to its context. So for some people, a very pongy cheese is disgusting, and for other people, a very pongy cheese is delicious. And cultural aspects will, of course, come into that, as would ethical and political views with respect to whether animal produce is disgusting. And so the object of disgust shifts. It's not actually in the cheese itself. It seems to be very much what we bring to the table that makes something disgusting or pleasurable. You see,
my extended family hail from Sweden, okay? And you know what cultural dish the Swedes love, which is, of course, the rotting shark meat. Which, if you know, listeners, if you've not gone onto YouTube and seen, I think it's some American football players and whatever else, and then George Foreman, and they're eating, they try and open up. Well, they did an experiment in Brockwell Park, an area of London where I used to live, and they opened it up, and literally people down on sort of Tulse Hill, half a mile away, were complaining about the aroma, and people. And it's a true story. It's a true story. I remember this. It was the 90s. I was kind of vaguely conscious at the time, and so therefore, because, and you say to people, this is a delicacy. Great. What is it? It's raw shark. It's fermented shark meat that's been sitting there for 6 months. I mean, once you get past it, William Shatner is the only one who could eat this stuff. Captain Kirk. Go look at it. But we bring culturally, don't we, to everything that we look at philosophically and indeed in a taste kind of way.
Yeah, definitely. Fermented foods is a really good example. Like kimchi, for example, as well, is another fermented food that is really, really delicious to some, but to someone who's maybe not come across it before might taste quite strange. And I think it's important that we shine a light on what is doing the work in our disgust responses, because when it is something that is provoked because of an unfamiliarity, say, or where unfamiliarity breeds a certain fear, like that you might be in danger. Once we recognise that we're really not in danger from the kimchi, from the rotting shark, from the pongy cheese, that this disgust response can actually maybe be inappropriately an inappropriate reflex to what otherwise could be seen as delicious, then that's, I think, quite powerful. And I think cheese is a good example because in some instances it can really smell of vomit, and we do have disgust responses to vomit when it could smell exactly the same as something that we otherwise take to be delicious. And so noticing how one and the very same smell can in some contexts produce disgust and in other contexts produce pleasure really shows us how much work we are doing in and the context and the connotations are doing in making something repellent or magnetic.
But you see, if you're repelled by a particular pongy cheese, what we're saying here is, because we've looked at projecting outwards, i.e. the whole the donut, we're talking about metaphysics, etc., etc. But if you're looking about your own disgust response to an object, then you have to, and I'm not going to get all deep and meaningless with you on a Wednesday morning, but, then perhaps you should, physician, know thyself. You should actually strip down your own response and think to yourself, well, why do I feel like that when I see this? Why do certain signs and signals, trigger me, as I believe the youth would say these days, Suki?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in general, this is what I want my book to do. We're starting with something maybe quite light and frivolous with food, in thinking deeply about the boundaries around objects and how we respond to objects and identify them and stuff. But actually, these skills of thinking deeply can then be used to be applied to the wider world and all the very difficult questions that we face in this complex world. And once we've exercised those skills of thinking deeply in a kind of safe and fun way, I think this book is almost like a spoonful of sugar helps the philosophy go down.
Very good. Very good.
Then we can apply it to much trickier cases. And as you say, start to self-reflect and critique on how we've come to certain ideas and challenge the assumptions that we might have in areas that are maybe a bit more impactful than our views about food. But food is a great starting point.
Here's a question, Suki.
Yeah.
When you go to dinner parties, yeah, and the main course arrives, I mean, do you have to fight back the urge and go, actually, that Bellini, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, is it? Oh, we'll invite Suki on because she'll tell us why there's a hole in the donut and why, this. I mean, but seriously, I mean, the thing is, when you say to people, I do metaphysics and the whole thing, I mean, people will presumably go, oh, great, everything, everywhere, all at once, fantastic, let's talk about that. But it is perhaps demystifying some of the mysteries around kind of what you do and saying that it's not hoity-toity, faluting, watercress munching type of philosophy. This actually matters, and it has real applications in the real world, Suki.
Oh, wow. That is music to my ears. Thank you so much. That is exactly what I'm hoping that the book delivers. I agree that sometimes philosophy feels out of touch and out of reach for people. And I really wanted this book to make it more tangible and more accessible by using food as a very commonplace experience that probably we've all had some thoughts about or some interactions with. And so, yeah, I want to demonstrate that philosophy is an everyday common practice. I think everyone is a philosopher. We all think, we all rationalize things and reason with things and imagine otherwise and dream and hope. And these are all philosophical activities, I think. Given that philosophy is the very study of an exercise of thought in all its shapes and sizes. So, yeah, I'm really glad that is the sense that you got from the book. And I think when I'm invited to dinner parties, it depends on who the other guests are, whether I get all philosophical on them. But it's really a hazard of having this sort of brain that asks these questions about everything. It's not just food. And in all of my other work, I think about other sorts of examples. So, yeah, this cuts across all aspects of my life.
You see, what we have to do, Suki, is you have to come. You have to come and visit me in Marbella, okay? And I have to take you to a chiringuito, a Spanish beach bar on the Mediterranean around lunchtime. And therefore, we can have the perfect mixture of all this potential, because you will have the green salad, which is everything in a, when you're going to have your fresh tomatoes, your local produce. But then, of course, you have the mighty paella, with such a mixture of things from the sea and tastes and sensations and the arroz. And we don't put chorizo in it, but that surely the paella is the vindication, nay, the actual stark staring there in front of your face thing about the complexities of the universe, and perhaps a metaverse where rather than having a fast food outlet that sells hamburgers, we have in a metaverse we have paella, we have biryani, and we have the whole, you name it, because there are so many different variations in the metaverse foods-wise.
Oh, well, you know what? I'd love to. I actually go to that part of the world every year of my life. My granddad lived out there in San Pedro. And in the book, I even speak about San Pedro. I don't know if you ever remember the ice cream place called Millifrutti.
Yes, I do indeed. I'll have to talk to you about that offline. Yes, I do. I've got a story about that.
That gets a special mention in the book. The last chapter is based around not being able to choose my ice cream at Millifrutti.
Because it was run by Italians. It was in a proper Italian area. Yes, indeed. The Panamatis. The Panamatis was the name of the family.
Oh, okay, there you go. So, yeah, I have a very special connection with Marbella and San Pedro in that part of the world, and I speak about tapas in the book.
Suki.
So I feel like this is fitting.
This is more than fitting, and that has completely blown my mind because, yes, well, there you go. So if you're thinking there are no such things as accidents, well, we've just put, an absolutely philosophical point that you might think that you know everything in the world, and then the home truths are you talk to somebody and they know the same Italian ice cream place that you used to frequent as well. Mind officially, but there are no such things as accidents, Suki.
Another philosophical claim worth interrogating.
Indeed. The book is called What's in a Donut Hole? Another Philosophical Food for Thought. It's by Dr. Suki Finn. Suki, if people want to find you online and continue this argument or this thing, where's the best place to find you and track you down and say wonderful things about you?
Oh, thank you so much. If people want to get in touch, I don't actually have any social media, but I do have a website with a contact form and happy to hear from people. So my website is www.sukifinn, that's SUKIFINN.com.
SukiFinn.com. Well, this is called What's in a Donut Hole. Suki, thank you for blowing my mind.
Thank you for having me.
No, the pleasure's been all mine, and just, absolutely wonderful stuff. And I'm glad that we could both chatter around like idiot about what exactly is on the inside of a donut hole. Suki, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.